Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's all right. And a little thing to fix before we start. Hope all of you is going well. Something is just not like I want it to be. And that is that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fright Night. Oh, no, that's the wrong show. Sorry. With Peter Vincent. So, hello, everybody. Got my what's left of my here. Okay, apple cider drinks. So that's what we're going to have tonight. The rest of it, and hope everyone's all right. So let me just do something here. Change something. Just want to make sure that we're centered and okay. So here we go, everybody. Welcome aboard. Nice to have you here. We are live once again for another live shortwave show. And we're going to talk about things to do this summer. Of course, in the southern hemisphere, it's winter, but, for a lot of us here in the northern hemisphere, it's summer pretty much now. And we're going to have some really hot weather actually coming up. So welcome, everyone. And hope you enjoyed the show today. So we are live twice a week on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's 0 hours UTC, which is Thursday, for a big, big chunk of the world. And we are live on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 20 hours Universal Time. And we talk about radio. Yeah, that thing called radio. Actually, everybody thinks radio's dead, but nobody understands that their smartphone is actually a transceiver. It's a radio device, basically. So kind of nice to have all of you here. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and that is northeast part of North America. We, of course, talk about radio and have fun with radio. I hope that you will enjoy the show tonight. And basically, we just try to have everybody just join and have fun. Whether you're a newbie or an experienced ham radio operator that knows everything, all I can say is that we are here to have fun. And I think everybody's welcome, whether you just started in the hobby or you're in the hobby for years. This is a cool thing about here, is that everybody respects everyone, and everybody just will be so helpful to anybody that has questions about our hobby. I mean, there's so many questions in our hobby that it's normal. You kind of a little lost. You don't know where to tune. You don't know what to do. Well, here's a place for that. Here's a place for fun. And when this show is over, actually, you know what? There's a Facebook group, official SWL channel Facebook group, which is a great, great place to continue that and share and have fun sharing with what you're listening to and so on. This is the reason, one of the main reasons this exists, actually. I often say it, wish this existed. Wish there was some guy on the internet that I could watch when I started in 1982. Hey, I would have watched that guy so much, learning about what I just didn't know what it was, shortwave. I knew the minimum of what shortwave was, but I didn't know that much. And man, that would have been so cool, so cool. And basically, it's one of those places where I think it's super cool to have everybody together. We often say it also that this is a solitary hobby. I mean, we're alone with our radios in general. How many times did we, I think we all came to the experience of, oh, you're listening to that noise again. Yeah. Yeah. So mind your own business. We love it. But, most of it is alone. It's something that we, it's something that is, when I think there's something weird with us that we just have fun with that and imagining, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I sit down, I'm listening to a signal on shortwave and I start thinking of what's the path that signal is using to come to here and thinking that it's crossing the Atlantic Ocean in order to be received here. It's mind-boggling. I mean, still remember how funny it was when my nephew, I was telling my nephew, because he was listening to NHK Radio Japan French service on the Texan PL 450 that I gave him. And one day we're listening, and I'm like, that's far away. It's like, it's not Japan, but then he tells me, he says, well, maybe it's even further away than Japan. And I start looking at the distance maps, and I'm like, wow, it's actually farther away to listen to Madagascar relay than it is to listen to the NHK direct from the Japan transmitter site. And you're like, wow, okay, that's interesting. It's even farther away. But the distance is amazing. You listen to that and you're like, wow, really cool, really cool. Had a nice day today. Went out to I didn't go to the island because for those that don't know, so last 2 weeks ago I went to Visitation Island. That's the island where I went to. Today I didn't go to the island. I stayed close. So I went to the park. Now, the problem with the park is that it's closer to buildings, which means, I was expecting higher noise. It turned out to be not so bad, meaning it was noisier than on the island, but it wasn't, it was much better than here anyway. So I could hear stuff that I don't usually hear much. And that was kind of fun. I could hear some signals, and as if you guys have watched the the videos that I posted, I've had that reception of an English language Russian number station in such a long time. I heard English number station coming from Moscow, Russia today. Videos online, and just using telescopic on the Texan H501X. I was like, wow, this is so cool. And of course, I heard one signal was super clear, was the Voice of America 15165, I believe. That came in super well from the Wolferton, UK transmitter side. Actually, it was interesting. At one point, around 1800 UTC, the 19 meter band was populated with many signals coming out of Wolferton, UK. It seems that they are renting a lot of airtime to different broadcasters, which is kind of cool. And even though I did bring the ANT 60 St. Gian reel-up antenna and everything, I just stayed with the telescopic finally today. And had a lot of fun. I mean, it's always fun to be outdoors and be outside in the warm weather. It was beautiful weather today. It was about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 Celsius. And we just had I just had some great time listening to some of those signals, tuning around. I was constantly tuning around. This is my thing. I have two modes in which I embark when I am listening to the radio. One is program listening. What do? I sit down, I punch in frequencies of stations I want to hear. I listen to whatever they're saying, whatever they have to broadcast to me. And then there's another mode that I embark in is I just tune everywhere. And that's what I did today. And actually, there's a few videos I didn't make that because the signals were too low. But I gotta say, there was some English language transmissions in upper sideband around 10700, 10700. And around there was actually 3 or 4 frequencies where they were populated with some stuff. Some I couldn't make the language. I wasn't sure because it was too much in the noise. One, I kind of am pretty sure it must have been single sideband English language. But because it was in the noise, I didn't make the videos. I thought, it's too noisy to make a video about. So there was that. And there was all sorts of little things here and there that I could hear that was interesting. I heard because there's something called container. Container is the new woodpecker from Russia. And I'm pretty sure most of you probably came across it without knowing that it was that. The slow version of container actually does sound like the woodpecker. But most of it is a different type, which has much more pulses per second. That one is a very fast-paced woodpecker, I would say. And I actually heard this one around 18 megahertz, just before we reached the 17-meter band of amateur radio, between about 18,000 to 18,050. There's a 50 kilohertz spectrum there, and it definitely was what's called container, which is the brand new Russian woodpecker. There's actually a really nice article in for those that don't know, I've talked about it on the channel, but there's a fantastic book by Gail Van Horn, and that book is called The Global Radio Guide. And we just we'll go to the front page here. So this is Gail Van Horn's Global Radio Guide. This is the summer 2021 edition. It's available on Amazon. It's Kindle only. There's no paper copy, unfortunately. But if you guys want to really have fun, and this is actually a good one, even for people that are newbie, people that are new to the hobby. This is really definitely something to have. This is the article I was reading, actually. A Cold War radio demon has returned. And it's very interesting because it starts with the history of the woodpecker and goes on to the container, which is the modern version of it. Also, it's interesting because they talk about how they bring you two videos, one in particular that tells you that the woodpecker in the 80s was actually kind of a failure most of the time. So lots of interesting stuff. So Gail Van Horn, Global Radio Guide, check that out. It's inexpensive. It's maybe $7 or $8 US. It's $9.99 Canadian. I love this book. I buy it every time there's a new version. And now it's the summer 2021 version that is available. Really, really cool stuff. So, and it made me realize I was hearing the Russian container, which is the modern version of the woodpecker today when I was actually listening to the bands. So, anyways, enough chatting. We're going to try to go into direct hello here to people in the chat room and everything. First, let's check out the email. So, in the email, we have Elizabeth in Regina, Saskatchewan saying hello and hope you are well. Nice to be here listening to the show. And we have Richard Lemke, that is in Alberta. Nice to have you on board. Very warm, 29 Celsius this evening. And nice to have you on board, Richard. And as you probably noticed, there is a show. Sometimes I'm a little last minute because I came a little late and I was actually eating outside on the balcony. And so I took the time to eat and take the time to relax a little bit before the show started today. So hope everybody's fine. And it's nice to have really everybody on board. So that's the email into the chat room. Nice to have you on board. We have, it's a little bigger for my old eyes. Rob in Phoenix, Arizona. Nice to have you on board. 103 Fahrenheit. That's way too hot for me. We're going to be in the 90s next week, mid 90s even. It's going to be real hot here. SoCal, nice to have you here from California. Nice to have you on board, AJ6II. Bobby Burgess, nice to have you here from Morgan City, Louisiana, USA. WA5107 SWL. Jerry X, nice to have you on board. Randall, nice to have you here from Northeast Illinois. TVDXer, bonjour, j'espère que ça va bien toi aussi. Ça va très bien ici. C'est toujours un plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous. Cheers, by the way, everybody. James Farley, nice to have you here from Old Bridge, New Jersey. Dave, nice to have you on board. Kamagzi76 from West Michigan. Richard Califano, nice to have you on board. I am installing my MLA30. What is more important, putting it up on the roof or just out the window? The MLA30, the most important is to put it as far away to noise sources as possible. So that means if you put it on the roof and it's actually there's less noise there, it's going to perform better, that's for sure. So I would say as far away from the house as you can in a way, but mostly find it a spot where it's the least amount of noise possible, and then oriented so that there's the least amount of noise, and just leave it alone after that. James Farley says New York radio on 6577. That's Aeronautical Communications. Charles Williams, nice to have you on board. Log 2112, nice to have you here from Texas. Bob Lewin, nice to have you here from New Jersey. Joe Tyson, nice to have you here from North Carolina, KM4 WRQ. Charlie, W8CFO, nice to have you here from Columbus, Ohio. Richard Califano, 14080, USB sound, various sounds. Do you know what it is? It could be FT4 on that frequency, I believe. It's not impossible because there's FT8 on 14076. But 14080, you should, I believe, have 14074, 7674. 14080, you should have, I think it's FT4, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of those frequencies. WF7I Ombrew, nice to have you here from Virginia. Joe, nice to have you here from Newmarket, Virginia. Paul, nice to have you on board from Michigan. HF Band's very quiet this evening. No, I was not having trouble. I was just kind of trying to be as fast as possible in doing what I need to do to get on the air. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you here. Robert Cross, nice to have you on board. Spike Spikerson, nice to have you here. Bob Lewin, yeah, he's calling. No, FT8 is on 14074. FT on 14080, it's, I believe, FT4. Robert Cross, how everyone is keeping. What else do we have? William Helms, nice to have you here from Florida. Joe Rodman, nice to have you here from Chicago. Christian Marcoux, bonsoir. J'espère que tu vas bien. Nice to have you on board, my friend from Northern Ontario. James Johnson, nice to have you here from southwest suburbs of Chicago. VT Radio, Paulie is sad tonight. All the smoke came out of my Zenith Transoceanic R600. I turned it on out of the cabinet, and there was a loud noise, bright flash, smoke, and odor. A 150 ohm resistor exploded. Man, take the time to examine, and sometimes it's not that bad of a problem. Just take the time to fix it, and see if you can fix it. Of course, that old equipment, that reminds me of my World War II radio transceiver that had only the receiver working, and I still remember I used it a lot. And one day I turned it on, and all I saw was white smoke coming out of the back, and I was like, okay, it's dead now. David, KJ4CMY says, I'm an experienced ham radio operator. I don't know everything. I just try to act like I like it. Also, like me. Actually, I have no idea what I'm talking about every day and every time I'm live. I hope you guys noticed. We have Simon Templar. Nice to have you here. Catalan, nice to have you on board from Germany. Trevor Williams, nice to have you on board from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Well, cool to have you on board, and hope as a newbie you'll learn more and more about radio here. It's fun to have people here for sure. Kevin, happy to be here. My GP5 came in the mail today. Excited to test it out this evening. Cool. Have fun. Try the ETM scan. It's really working well on that radio. It's really fun. Catalan, is there a website where you can see the signal path? Well, there's short-wave.info, I believe, that has a map. Even the app on Android, Shortwave, Skywave radio has maps of the general direction where the signal is going. But you know what? What's the problem? The biggest problem with maps is maps show the general direction of a signal, but on a flat map, if the Earth was flat, that worked. Problem is the Earth is round, and it's kind of a little. Sometimes you look at the map and you're like kind of fooled into thinking a signal might come from an area, but in reality, because of the curvature of the Earth, it's not exactly that. So that is something, but general, not always, because it depends where they're transmitting from and everything. Just kind of look at the azimuth from your location of where a transmitter site is, and most of the time, not always, and that we got to be careful, but most of the time gives you a general idea of where the signal's coming from, what direction technically. But you can be fooled, like 20 meters. When people tell me, well, why is 20 meters working, in the summer nights from North America to Europe? Well, that's where you could get fooled, because you might think a guy in Austria might be in that general direction of a signal because it comes from Europe, and Europe is in that direction. But in reality, it's going over the North Pole. So the signal is not coming from that direction, but it's from another direction from the North Pole. So sometimes it's a little tricky to really know where a signal actually comes from. Blind Picker, nice to have you here, Rob. W0 RAB and Connecticut. We have Rob Fiducia says, watch the videos you posted today. Very cool. Arthur's Alley Crafter's Kitchen. Nice to have you here from Massachusetts. One of the things about the latest videos at Visitation Island is you notice when you bring a radio like the H501X, that's where you notice, darn, this radio is big. It's a bigger radio to bring along with you on a DXpedition, can tell you that. Log 2112. Anyone remember when the 22 meter band first opened? I still remember the hype on DX Digest over that one. It was somewhere in the late 80s, if I remember well. 22 meter band, which is the 13 megahertz frequency range. For those of you that are newer to the hobby, you might think, well, what's all the hype in that frequency range? You got to go back in the 70s and 80s when they would meet up for the HFCC and the frequency coordination and all of that. One of the main things that was happening then was that shortwave was crowded. One of the biggest problems of radio listening in the 60s, 70s, and 80s was mostly overcrowded shortwave bands. Everybody was 5 kilohertz steps. One of the biggest problems with 5 kilohertz steps is that a lot of radios weren't that great in selectivity. So separating the different frequencies to listen to your favorite program wasn't actually that easy. And so, it might have looked like it, but no, it wasn't. I remember many days being mad at the fact that I couldn't hear such and such transmission on my radios back then because they were just overwhelmed by other stations nearby. And that was a frustrating experience in its own way. So what happened? They decided that it was time for us to have some new bands. One of them was a 22 meter band, 13 megahertz. One of them was the we have 16 meter band, and we have the 13 meter band. What was it? What did he call the? I'm trying to remember the. Anyways, there's the one at 19 megahertz, one that is not used, and it was used a little bit. I don't believe it was used. It's used much now, which is something like 18900 to 19100 or something like that. That is actually an international broadcast band that was added back in the day, and I remember, I think it was Radio Australia once broadcast on 19,000 kilohertz. And there were a few stations there, 18900 something. I remember a couple of stations, very few of them, but a couple of stations used it. It doesn't seem to be used right now. Let me check it out. I'm going to check out with the tablet here. I'm just going to check out. EIBI space schedules here. What are the frequencies used? So I'm going to check out what frequencies are used by, if any, on that band. So according to EIBI space, when we go above 17 megahertz, so we go. Let me just get there. Here we go. Okay, 17 megahertz. And then we go to, well, there's Sound of Hope using that band. Apart from that, nobody's using that band anymore. It's one of those frequency ranges that's not used anymore. It was used a little bit, but really not much now. Honestly, really, really not much now. So anyways, there's a couple of these frequency ranges that were added because there was need for space for new broadcasts. Problem is when the 22 meter band, for example, which is the most popular one, still used quite a lot today, appeared. Shortwave was already in a decline, so it was less and less relevant to have that band. Plus, remember that what happens when a new band appears, remember that especially back in the days, there were a lot of radios that were simply, giving you the international broadcast band frequencies. Were not general coverage. And that meant that a lot of radios missed on 22 meter band for a long time because it was not, a band. And before radios are starting to appear with that band in it, it took a while. So that was, and by then, shortwave was already in the decline, basically. There's so many crazy things. Remember when they had that meetup, and they thought that, you know what, maybe what should be done now is to have a all stations broadcasting in single sideband to save money. Okay, but there's a lot of radios out there that don't have single sideband. What are you going to do? That was another one that came through back then. And it was like, wow, really? You really want to do that? Plus, add the fact that, even today, a $50 radio doesn't drift. But in the old days of the 70s and 80s, even expensive radios would drift. So you'd have to readjust from time to time to stay on the pitch of the voice you're listening to. The idea behind saving money was you would save money. Costs a lot less to run a single sideband transmitter than an AM transmitter, which has the carrier on all the time. But the problem is, you need to have listeners that have the radios. It's like DRM. There's the listening guide that I just talked about, the Global Radio Guide. They have an article about DRM. I don't know, but I still don't get why they haven't understood that DRM is not the future of shortwave, and that they're wasting money, they're wasting time, and there's so much more where that money could go to maintain what we have. DRM is not and will never be something on shortwave. And I can't understand why they continue pushing it when hundreds of millions of radios out there get shortwave analog style, and you're going to lose a big chunk of the audience if you'd go DRM only. I would be, and I still would like to see any station tell me, oh, we went to DRM and our audience increased. Yeah, I don't think so. You went to DRM and nobody wrote to say that they were listening in because no one was there. The only guys that did write was like, I'm using a PC with Dream software and I've got this fancy SDR. And it's like, yeah, that's not your target audience for DRM. I'm sorry. If you wanted to have DRM for good quality audio, you wanted DRM to be something for everyone. It's not the case. I still stand by one thing that I believe in is stop wasting money and people's time in DRM. Get that out of shortwave, first of all, because it's a noise transmitter. It's so wide that it washes away other stations, and it is totally useless with the fade outs and fade ins that shortwave have. That's not what shortwave is. And unless someday some super efficient thing happens at a very low cost, forget it. And think in terms of audience. You got to think in terms of audience. Your audience is analog radio listening. 99.999% of the billions of radios out there. Come on. I don't know what you're thinking, and I don't know why you're spending and wasting money, but somebody's got a big mouth and somebody's got a push that's like, yeah, you got to do this. That's the future of shortwave. Yeah, okay. Hey, guy, you live in a place where it's minus 25 all the time. I'm going to sell you a freezer. You need a freezer. It's much better than outside at minus 25. Yeah, I'll just use a box and leave it out. Boy. Robert Cross bought a Sony ICF Shortwave 77, waiting for people to repair the radio. Log 2112, speaking of Gail Van Horn, all my radio equipment was from Grove. Yeah, Grove Enterprise. That was a big one back then. There's Ali Crafter's Kitchen says, talks to Paulie about his Zenith Transoceanic that gave away. He's gone into the radio heaven, but it can probably be revived for sure. Rick, nice to have you here from Milwaukee. MDK2, Matt, nice to have you here from Denver, Colorado, USA. We have let me just try to find where I was. So we have Mel, nice to have you on board. And just ordered that ebook last night, $9.91 on USA Amazon. Cool. It's a nice book. Honestly, it's a very, very nice book. The utility frequency list that they maintain is nice. And it's really, really a cool electronic publication. And it's inexpensive. Keegan, X80Xer, nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas. Carl Icon, nice to have you here. New York checking in. Solar eclipse next Thursday, the 10th. I wonder how that will affect propagation. The people that live in the area where the solar eclipse happens, actually, there is a shift in propagation. There is a pattern in propagation that's kind of interesting because solar eclipse means that there's a part of the atmosphere where the moon is blocking the sun's light. And we see it a lot when it's actually a total solar eclipse, because that one is a partial solar eclipse. When it's a total solar eclipse, when you listen to shortwave, there's a definite change in propagation as the eclipse unfolds. It's also something that you can easily try in medium wave. And some medium wave DXers actually take that moment to tune in when they're in the path of the eclipse, because a lot of AM stations have patterns. They have daytime power and nighttime lower power. So a lot of stations that people would like to listen to or DX are difficult or impossible at nighttime because the power is so low that they just don't hear it. But now it's daytime, and there's no rule that says, well, when there's an eclipse, you got to change that. So they are on high power, daytime power and patterns. And there is a moment where that propagation will come through for some time as the eclipse will progress. So there's definitely some changes in propagation, and on shortwave also. You can see that there's a shift in propagation, as if we would be moving from day to night and back to day again. The only thing you got to remember is that in a solar eclipse, the path where totality, for example, or even where enough darkness exists, is quite small. And you have to be close to that area to actually really see a big shift. Charles Williams, nice to have you here. And if you like medium wave DXing, Lloyd Van Horn's DX Central as DXing live streams like this one. Okay, so for medium wave DXers, cool. This is cool. Kite Man, nice to have you here from Denver. We have Paul. Can you read Kindle files without a Kindle? Nope. Unfortunately, I don't think so. But you can have the Kindle app on almost any platform. It's not a Kindle device you need. You can have the Kindle app on Windows, on Mac, on Android, on iOS, on your iPad. Kindle is an app. We're not talking about a device. So as long as you have the Kindle app, I don't know the Linux platform if the Kindle app exists. But as long as you have the Kindle app installed, then you just buy the ebook off of Amazon, and you got it. Robert Cross, what's wrong with the stream? What is wrong with the stream tonight? But the computer version is running through the Kindle app of Windows or whatever, right? Sal Morel, nice to have you here from New Jersey. But you need to have the Kindle app. It's just that it's available for every platform. Android, iOS, iPad, iPhones, Android tablets, phones, Windows, Mac. They all have a version. What else do we have? WF7I Homebrew, he is hearing YU1XA calling CQ and 7131 LSB. 7131. Lower. Am I there? Yes, I am.
Check out what's going on. So, anyway, there's some reviews in my 5 report, so I know that's not good. Wish I could give you a better report, but that's the best I can do right there. Yeah, thank you for trying. Yeah, it's 100 watts and right on antenna on the website. That's not anyway, thank you, video. Bye-bye, John. Hopefully I'll hear the education talk one of these days if I can have a good QSO. 73, good DX, 74T open. Bye-bye, 17. You are what? Why you want X-ray alpha?
Yeah, YU1 X-ray alpha, which is in Serbia, coming in on 7131 lower sideband. Absolutely.
November Echo 4
Nope, there's no PDF option when you buy a Kindle file. Ken Stevens, WX5YZ, nice to have you here. Jay Watterson, 69. Nice to have you on board. KW1161, nice to have you here from Tucson, Arizona. Like 2112 has FUS French Navy on 8552.595 in Stanag. Chaz Tank, nice to have you here from Louisville, Kentucky. RJDA Dakota, nice to have you on board. We have KW1161 says Visitation Island. It sounds like the old TV show called The Prisoner. Kimberly, nice to have you on board. K6YYL. And going out for our favorite food on our 31st anniversary. Congratulations, Kimberly. That is cool. Hector Vasquez, nice to have you here from Los Angeles, California. Yeah, Radio Australia was broadcasting on 19,000 kilohertz. I remember for a while. G0TUE. Nice to have you on board from the UK. Harris, sounds like you are from Quebec. I used to be VE2DGL from 67 to 69. But here's the main radio and antenna now. For a long time, so I had a lot of different radios over time. And my main radio for a long time was my desktop. So I'd say then in the 90s, Kenwood R5000 was my main radio. And then it went to the ICOM ICRD 500 that I got right here. But since I've had the SDR Play devices, the RSPDX that you see on this screen here is my main radio, SDR Play RSPDX, because the visual aspect of the SDR totally makes me fall in love with listening to radio in this way, in seeing signals. You know what? That reminds me of somebody saying, why Texan did the H501X, for example. Because with the Malahite or Malachite SDR, it's old technology. I don't agree, and I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with that. Because for me, even though it's kind of cute, 3-inch of SDR is uninteresting. It is not interesting. An SDR for me is a big screen with the waterfall. That's the interesting part of an SDR, and for me, and the majority of what an SDR. There are, of course, added bonuses of things like noise reduction is amazing and all of that. But overall, for me, I would prefer to, any day, you tell me, well, you're going to bring that Malachite or you're going to bring that the Texan H501. It's like, I'm going to bring the Texan H501. No interest in a 3-inch screen that does, because my fun is to find signals. To find signals, you need a big screen that has a lot of space for all the waterfall that you need to see the signals up to 2-3 megahertz away. If you tell me, well, I've got a 3-inch screen with 200 kilohertz, not interesting. I don't find that interesting. It's too small, and it's too small to handle also with a touch screen. What I like, there are a few things, like I said, the noise reduction and stuff like that. For the rest, no, I'd rather have a regular portable receiver. I don't agree with people, if that's what you like, that's what you like. But I do not agree with portable SDR thing. Not until it is much better than what it is now, and that there is a possibility of a bigger screen or bigger. It's just because it's small. And like I said, I use the waterfall a lot. For me, the main reason of the SDR is the waterfall. If I would have an SDR that has a waterfall that is, 100 kilohertz, I'm probably would not be using an SDR. Same thing, when people tell me, well, you don't seem to like that AirSpy HF Plus much. Waterfall is way too small. The bandwidth, the size of the waterfall, uninteresting, too small. And I get a lot of people saying, well, I don't see why you want to have bigger. Hey, I use a 55-inch screen. That's where an SDR shines with its waterfall. If you use a laptop with a 15-inch screen, yeah, I get it. You don't want more because you don't see more. It's too small of a screen. I got into the SDR fun with a big screen because that's how it is fun. But bring me a small screen, I'm not interested. It's not fun anymore. There's nothing interesting in a small waterfall. You miss out on so many signals that you could see pop up everywhere that you just don't see because your bandwidth, your size of display is so small that you don't see anything. That for me makes an SDR less interesting suddenly. So the small versions of these, they're cute, they're nice. They want to replace a portable radio for now because I find that display too small, honestly. Medium wave listener, nice to have you on board. Looking to buy a new radio. My main interest in are FM and AM DXing. I'm stuck between PL990X and 909X2. If you have the choice between both, get the PL990X. I can tell you that. And if you're an FM and AM DXer, there are choices that might be of interest to look at. The H501X, bigger radio, but has an FM antenna output for outdoor antenna. That might be interesting. And you can maybe look at the C-Crane receivers that are high, better radios for FM, AM DXing made only for that. That might be actually a better choice than the 990X or the 909X2. But one thing for sure, the Sangean 909X2 would be the last radio I would buy for FM, AM DXing. I can tell you that. David Martinez, nice to have you here from San Antonio. W1161, Drake R70, R7, all drifted all the time. Yeah, most radios back then did. The better ones did slowly, but man, most of them did. What else do we have? Tom DXer, WPE2QED, nice to have you on board from the Hudson Valley, New York. Randall Klons, in your opinion, the H501 worth an extra 60 over the PL990X? I will, if size isn't a problem, if you like a bigger radio. If I had personally none of those, I know how they perform now. If I didn't have the 990X or the H501, I would jump on the H501 directly. I would not even think of the 990X. Not that it's not good, but it is worth the extra $60. Yes, absolutely. Kathleen, why new Texan radios don't have DRM? Because they would be too expensive and they know they won't sell any. If they could get a DRM radio for $100, they would. Then maybe. And I think they would probably do it. But there are no radios with DRM that are below, $300-$400. Most people won't buy that. Dave, W1AW with CW on 7047.5 with interesting stories. Yeah, they take that from the QST magazine, I think. They actually broadcast the QST magazine articles. RJ Dakota, DRM not effective or efficient. They made better codecs. Some of the newer versions of DRM are actually a little better in doing what they can do. But I don't agree we should continue that way. That's not the way it is. Not for now, at least. G0TUE, Ray from Cumbria, UK. Log 2112, Hurricane Net active on 14300. Actually, it's 14325 usually. It must be the maritime net that you're listening to on 14300. Because the hurricane net is mostly there when there's an active hurricane about to hit land. Richard, what does FT4 and FT8 mean? They simply are digital modes. So FT8 and FT4 are two types of very sensitive, low-powered digital modes that amateur radio stations use. And are meant to have very limited information, just an exchange of signal report and of call signs mostly. But they are digital modes that can be decoded with computers, for example. RJ Dakota says, I actually started picking up our nighttime stations on medium wave. I actually tried this and it's incredibly awesome during the eclipse. There's an interesting pattern there, and a lot of medium wave DXers actually use eclipses in that way to hear stations they couldn't hear sometimes. Jim, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. Dirt Funk, yes, Dirt Funk. It's SDR Uno with an SDR player SPDX. My Jam, nice to have you here. Jimmy Juice's Bar, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. No, it doesn't mean necessarily just low power, but most people use low power. But it's really a weak signal mode. That's for sure. That's for sure. All right, JD Akota got a new PL330 last Saturday. How do you like it? Very sweet. Cool. Great radio. Really great radio. Mr. Paul. Yeah, Mr. Paul is outside right now in the neighbor's yard, actually, in the grass. It's just so funny. Melodic Miner, nice to have you here. New subscriber from Minnesota. Welcome aboard, my friend. They're fun, cool. Love my RSPDX as well, but I really, really miss being able to use SDR Sharp. Yeah, but SDR Sharp is the problem with SDR Sharp is that you got to complain to the AirSpy guys. They are the one that decided that SDR Play cannot have SDR Sharp usage because they are afraid of competition. That's why I bought an AirSpy HF Plus Discovery for purpose of testing, talking about it. But I'll never buy anything from AirSpy ever again. I can tell you that. I do not like people that are that are kind of bully and decide that competition is not good. Besides, I still am not convinced it's better than an SDR RSPDX at all. And I like my RSPDX way better because of its much wider frequency coverage. My Jam, my brother wants me to buy his first shortwave radio between 50 and 70 US dollars. He's going to pay me back. Any suggestions? So from 50 to 70 US dollars, try to stretch it to get the Texan PL 330. If you can get the Texan PL 330, that would be, I would think, would be the best bang for the buck that he could have. And it has single sideband, and I mean, he would already have an amazing radio. You know. Yeah, but you know what? Log 2112, it doesn't beat a tuning knob anytime if what you see around the frequency is too small. And I do not agree with that. But that's okay. If you know, but when it's too small, it's not interesting. It is not interesting. Because when you see too small of a frequency range around the frequency you're listening to, what's the interest in seeing just a little blob of a huge chunk of a spectrum? Nothing. It is not interesting. So in a small area of frequency, I do not agree that it's useful. When you have like this, a big chunk of frequency, now it becomes interesting. And now that beats, and that's why I'm not using my ICOM. But have you noticed I haven't brought my malachite to my D expeditions in the last 2 weeks? It's one of the last things I would bring with me, actually. And it's not because I can't power it. I can power it all day long. It's just not interesting in such an environment in which such a small screen. And that's where a portable with a knob actually shines much more. But if you have a big spectrum like I have here, now that's why I'm not using the ICOM, because that gives me enough visible spectrum to be interesting, to see what's around. That is SDR for me. James Farley, 6975 AM Pirate. Anyways, I think it's a question also that we all like different things. I like SDRs when there's a lot of information on my screen, not when it's in a 3-inch, very small format. It is not interesting there. Spiderweb Net on 14347 says log 2112. The beverage today is apple cider lemonade that I had three cans of them left. So that's what I'm having tonight. AM FM DX Radio. Nice to have you on board from Washington. James Farley, DX440 sounds great. Avid tea drinker. Nice to have you here. Got his Skywave SSB. Really enjoying it. Cool. Have fun. Have fun and tune the world. That's the important thing about it. Joe, 501 gives something none of my other radios do, stereo sound. That is absolutely, I don't have any other shortwave radio that has stereo sound. That's for sure. And of course, there's SD card and Bluetooth add, but that is also on the 990X. I would say that 501 stereo sound, FM antenna output, that isn't available on the 990X. And a few little things that make it just a little more interesting to listen to. Single sideband. The HEC is a little softer, a little less punching through the single sideband signals. And just an overall great performer. RJ Dakota finds the ETM Plus extremely useful. Really like the auto switch between the upper and lower sideband when I listen to the amateur bands. What else do we have? James Farley, what do you think of HD radio on shortwave? Actually, HD radio compared to DRM is, takes less space and is actually more, I'd say performance is better. It'd be interesting maybe to see a HD radio style signal on shortwave if it would work good enough, especially if you put a little buffering in it, because you have the shortwave fade outs that would make you like get out of the signal. But I don't know, that'd be interesting, but of course it doesn't exist. HD radio is really just on AM FM here in North America. AM FM DX, that's impressive. Furthest AM signal I have gotten with just a Texan PL 398 standing outside. KXEL AM 1440 in Iowa. Yeah, the delay is me in the chat room because I am always like far in the chat room, basically. If they would let competition, because I think they obviously noticed that the SDR Play devices are their direct competition, price versus performance. And I don't like the way AirSpy is very closed down. And I mean, I don't know how many people I heard saying, well, when you complain to AirSpy about something, they're really rude and they are like, well, you're an idiot and you don't know what you're doing because it's the best you can have. Yeah, right. I don't like that way of doing stuff. Mike Jan, thank you so much for your input on the Texan PL330. Yeah, that would be the best bang for the buck. PL330. Great radio, does it all. Precise tuning, calibration possibility. and it just is unbeatable for the price. Totally unbeatable for the price. You know. No, it's all the size thing, Log 2112. When you see enough size on each side, it's interesting. When it's too small of what spectrum you see, it becomes uninteresting, though. Because a lot of what an SDR is all about is seeing everything, seeing many megahertz, you know? Here's the thing. So you're talking about an R75. What I'm talking here is, like I said, the SDR play, for example, RSPDX, I can see up to 10 megahertz. Now, I never use 10 because that's a little too much. But like right now, I'm modest. I'm like about 500 kilohertz. But usually I will have maybe, a couple of megahertz to see a little more. Like now I got 1 megahertz, which is very manageable on the big screen. I mean, that's fun. Seeing, I think what we misunderstood maybe in the way that we were comparing SDRs. When I talk about like the small SDR is because I find that the small SDRs have so little in spectrum visible. You don't have 2 megahertz on that 3-inch screen. It would be, first of all, probably unusable because the screen's too small. But I think what we agree is like here, for example, I see a full megahertz, which is really fun. I know that I can see that, for example, the Trenton military station is on at 6754 because I see let's go and tune it, So I see on 67, just above 6750, there's a signal, and I know it's probably Trenton military, and I can go and click there and put in upper sideband, and here we go.
Temperature 14.
So that's Trenton military. I can see that. I can see all the signals of the 41 meter band, of the amateur bands. I want to see, what's that signal? Who's that ham radio operator right here, for example? So there's something here.
Okay, so Shirley, I'm sure.
There we go.
Anyway, David, Maryland, and
so
I can click. Sure you're 5 and 9 as well. Over.
I can click there, and there's a lot of spectrum. There's a lot of visible signals. I just love that. It's really cool. Like, for example, at the bottom, complete bottom here, there's something right here. I know that that's the aeronautical band, so let's put myself here. And see. Here we go. So this is aeronautical. I would have missed out that there's some aeronautical communications on 6640 if it wasn't for the fact that I saw it in the display. So like I say, it beats my ICOM SDR 8500. Like when you see 2 megahertz, it beats your R75. We do agree totally on that. What I was mostly saying about the malachite and stuff like that is when you get to a device that is this big, because it's here, actually should turn it on. I haven't used it in a while. You get to a point where you're like, this is so small in visible screen, and there's so little that I can see on either side that's where I'm not convinced of the usefulness of that device compared to my portable radio. Because I don't see a big enough spectrum for it to be useful. It's all has to do with size. AM/FM DX radio, you're having me fall in love with the Texan H501. I think I have to save up for one. It's a great radio. It's not for everybody, and I don't think everyone needs to have one of those. I will compare it again on several videos. I'll compare it with lower priced receivers because I want people to truly understand one thing. It's a unique radio in what it is. It's a unique radio in what it is. But it doesn't mean you need to move on from a Texan PL330 to go there. Because I'll say it again and again. The PL330 will get the same signal that the H501 does. And that it's official. But you get extras, and that's where the money goes. And you're like, yeah, do I want these extras? Do I want to have we call it a shortwave boombox? Do I want to have FM stereo? Do I want to have superb audio that doubles as a amazing audio player at the same time? Now, if you answer yes to all of these questions, now you're going to say, well, okay, I need an H501X because that's all of that, and I want all of that. And I think in some respect, although it doesn't quite reach the quality of high-end or higher-end audio devices, it's so good in its audio department that I think anyone that is thinking of, I want to have a shortwave radio, and I want to also buy a, speaker and for good audio quality when I'm listening to music and stuff. Well, you can maybe combine that into an H501X, which won't be more expensive than those two purchased separately, and have amazing sound in an audio device already. MFMDX radio has got both the Texan PL398, 98BT, which are stereo shortwave radios. As a radio broadcaster, I wanted stereo FM. That's why H501 looks so cool. Oh, absolutely. And on the H501, what you get is amazing sound. And I mean truly amazing, rich sound, which is for a radio broadcaster, it's the perfect radio. It truly, the H501X, honestly, I was using it today on my DXpedition. I mean, this is definitely a big radio. This is definitely a big radio when you look at it. But I have to say, if you are a sucker for the good old 80s style portable radio that was big, that did shortwave, was amazing, add the fact that it's stereo FM and it's an amazing sound in boombox, that's what you want. You want an H501X for sure. That you answered the question there. But I don't think I don't think everybody needs that. I don't think everybody should have an H501X. Also, there's size. Some people don't like big radios. They want to have something small that's easy to bring everywhere. Well, the H501X is not the radio you bring everywhere. That's for sure. David Martinez is waiting for his 330 to land in his mailbox. Cool. James Farley has Voice of Hope 9975. So pretty cool. John McClure, nice to have you on board. KC8TBY, as in True Romance, when it comes to a radio, size doesn't matter. It's what you hear that really counts. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if tomorrow morning, for some reason, I'd be stuck with using a PL330, and that's the only radio I'll ever have for the rest of my life, I will miss the H501 in some of the radios I have. But honestly, I will be happy because what I've got left in the PL330 is a radio that does it all. And that's all I need in reality. It does it all. It's going to get all the stations I want. And it's got, nice single sideband tuning. The ETM Plus is amazing. I would not be sad. I would miss, like I said, some of the radios I got. I want to be sad to be stuck with a PL330 for the rest of my life, because I know it's still a good radio, and it will give me all the reception of everything I want. So, So, like I said, I think what we misunderstood, log 2112, maybe what you didn't understand, what I was trying to say is, on a small Malachite, the fact that it's a small screen is so small that's where the usefulness of the SDR becomes less appealing, because there's not enough visible spectrum. But look, I don't use my ICOM, my CR8500 pretty much, since I have the SDR. I will say one thing about analog tuning, though, that is truly more interesting. An example where I will use my ICOM ICRD500 over the SDR is when you need to quick tune sporadic signals at a few frequency spots, and that the signal moves all the time. And the example I'll give to you is, I like to dabble with amateur radio satellites. So when I use one of those amateur radio satellites that are using SSB with these inverter transponders, what happens is that every time somebody talks, now they're going to be in a certain range of spectrum, which usually isn't large enough to not be able to swipe through with the ICOM, in a relatively good speed. But the problem is, there's the Doppler shift that you got to add. So you got to follow the Doppler shift. Then you have to follow the fact that every time they transmit, or some station transmit, it might be a little off. You have to tune all the time. It's jumping around, it's moving around. You got to tune all the time. That's where this becomes less interesting, unless I would add some, because I know that some have this kind of tuning knob that you can add to an SDR. Now that would make it similar, but just clicking on the frequency, on the signals, it's like driving you crazy, because not only when you click on it, most of the time you're not exactly on it. You got to kind of fine tune it. Where with the analog tuning dial, it's easy to rapidly just go to wherever you need to go to listen to that signal quickly. I will favor, in that case, the ICOM for these types of signals. Sorry, guys. I need to find 1 second, guys. Oh, God. I don't know if it's the pollen in the air or something, but I need to simply quickly okay, here we go. It's there's a lot of pollen in the air, so I'm not a big allergic guy, but just enough that sometimes it just gets to me a little bit. Plus, Paul the cat, of course, with the cat hair everywhere. So I'll take a sip of my cider here. Dave, the Civil Air Patrol net on 5330.5. Am I hearing that here? 5330.5 upper sideband. Anything here? Not much right now, but I know that I noticed that there's some single sideband here. There's something here.
I think something does not expect about it.
Some 60-meter hams in upper sideband on 5346.5. 5346.5 upper sideband. 5346.5 upper sideband. By the way, guys, I'm 10 minutes behind right now.
Okay, yeah, down to Lexington would be about what, 100 miles?
So some activity on 60 meters. MFM DX, I never see anyone with a Texan PL398, which is stereo. The audio speaker is not great, and that's the drawback. Yeah, I know. It's not a model that I see a lot also. I almost went for a purchase once on the PL398, but never did. And it's a cute little radio. Dan, nice to have you on board from Ohio and AWJZ. VK5014SWL yesterday received his Texan PL330. Very excited to test it out soon. Cool. Nothing like getting a new radio to play around with. It's just so amazing. Just so amazing. KC8 TBY, decent set of headphones, can truly make the audio even of the smallest multi-band radio as good as a radio such as the 501X. Yeah, it's not going to reach it, but definitely a good pair of headsets on a lot of radios brings them to life with pretty amazing audio. You're totally right on that. Ron Stark loves his Texan 310. After years, it still keeps on working. N8ON. Cool. What else do we have? RGD Dakota. Any one of these small portables has a headphone port, can be connected to a set of larger speakers. Yep, absolutely. Shelly, nice to have you on board from South Central Pennsylvania. Log 2112S Gander 8891, New York 8906 with cell call. Dirk Funk, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but may I ask what kind of antenna you have hooked up to that RSPDX? It's an MLA30 magnetic loop antenna in the front balcony, which is here. And I'm using a multi-coupler. So I have a Streetsburg Engineering 4-port multi-coupler. So I can actually use that antenna on 4 radios at the same time without any interaction between them. So it's great for testing. So I get regular people saying, well, you can't test radios this way. Yeah, you can with a Streetsburg Engineering multi-coupler. It's expensive, but it actually isolates each radio and gives me 4 radios hooked up to the same antenna without any interaction whatsoever. It works great. So that's the antenna that I'm using for the RSPDX here. I do have a W6LVP loop that's in the backyard. I use it on my portable radios when I'm outside in the balcony. And of course, I've got a Tram 1411 discount for everything CB and up, basically. Stephen Wood, 4775, Radio Tarma, Peru, getting in a good signal now into eastern Massachusetts. Okay, let's check it out. 4775. Anything here? It's definitely there because I see it in the waterfall. But it's almost impossible to make out anything. Bob Lewin, my PL330 is great. When I added the MLA30 antenna, it took it to another level. If you use your portable as a base station, as well. An external antenna is a must. Chastang caught an odd signal yesterday, 7550 at approximately 0220 UT. Short transmission in Farsi when several numbers. Farsi again, then transmission ended. Very faint but readable. Sounds like a number station, actually. 7550. Like 2112, do prefer SDR over the ICOM. I will end the subject here. You many valid points. That's why I like to tune in. You got a fantastic channel. Thank you very much. And then there's the preference of, it's obvious that some people have a preference for SDRs and they just want to have SDRs. And the other way exists also. People have a preference for just analog radios and tuning knobs and don't want to have to dabble with SDRs. And that's fine also. I think that's, there's the world we live in is, people love different things. That's what makes the world beautiful. And we have all sorts of different things. I'm, a sucker for an SDR with a big display, but I would rather have an regular analog radio with tuning knobs on a smaller radio, unless the SDR has a big display, Mel, I ammed and awed between the 909X2 and 990X. I went with the X2. I like the radio, safe for the tuning button. I enjoy knobs more, however, wanted WA batteries. And that's fine. I mean, in the 909X2, and, I say it all the time when I do rant about some of the shortcomings for the price, but it's not a bad radio. And a 909X2 will get all of those signals also. So if you go for a 909X2 or if you own one, don't think I'm poo-pooing the 909X2. I just am in a mode where when you start paying big bucks for a radio, better deliver. And if the 909X2 would be at $100, I would have thrown out these weird things that it does that isn't right. Not complaining as much because it's a lower priced radio. But being a radio of that price range, which is, let's face it, a 909X2, a 990X, an H501X is an expensive radio by today's standard. So it better do something good and better than the others if you want me to say it's an amazing radio. I get why the 990X and H501X are higher priced for some of the added features and amazing audio they have. But, their shortcomings. Their sync detector is crap. There's a little wobble in the SSB. I'm going to talk about it. That even though it works fine, sometimes can be a little annoying. Not using regular standard batteries. That could be a game changer for a lot of people. AA batteries are easy to find everywhere. I tell it all the time. So there's a lot of reasons to choose one over the other. But you still get a great radio. The 909 X2 is a great radio still. Christian Marcoux, I don't know much about SDR. Is there a way you can use someone else's antenna in the world, or is just your own antenna? It's your own antenna in the case of an SDR you own here in your own home. Because Christian, just think about an SDR as a simple radio. It's a simple radio. Like any other radio you own. It's just a radio. The only difference, and it's the only thing that makes it different, is that because it doesn't have knobs and it's just a little box, the only way to control it is using a computer. And that's the only thing. It doesn't work with the internet in any way. What you see here has nothing to do with the internet. It's just the interface showing what my radio is picking up with my own antenna. Maybe what mixes up people sometimes, and I think that's where the mix-up is in an SDR, is that there are online SDRs that can be tuned remotely by us, like the Kiwi SDR website. You tune a radio from somewhere else around the world. But that's still a radio in that location with an antenna receiving signals. It's just that it's streamed through the internet to you. Those are remote SDRs. A SDR at its basic form is a simple little box it's a radio. You plug your antenna on it. You need an antenna, so you plug your own antenna on that thing. And it doesn't have the knobs, so it doesn't have the buttons that these radios have. How do you control it? The only way to control it is using a computer. Once again, you could be using a computer not connected to the internet. It doesn't matter. As long as it has the software, it works. It's not a connected radio. It's just a radio that is controlled by a computer. That's all. It's the only one you can tune in. The computer is the tuning knob and the filters and the different options, you know? Have a tea drinker. Deal breaker for me was the Texan PL330. Was that the radio takes lithium battery instead of WA. That's why I chose a Seacrane Skywave. Yeah, you know, it's understandable. It's depending on what you want. I've come to get used to the fact that these radios use other types of batteries. But, you know, I get it. And I say it all the time. You know, I look at the Texan PL 990X or the H501X. The size they have would have made it possible for them to just use AA batteries if they wanted to. Actually, the H501X could almost use C-sized batteries because of its size. But I think there's a shift. The reason also, and I understand that. Like look at the 330. So the PL330, man, the only batteries that would have fit in the 330 probably are, you know, if I look at the 330 here, AAAs, AAA batteries would have fit in there maybe. So they would have had AAAs. And one of the biggest problems with AAA batteries is the low performance. AAA batteries don't pack a lot of punch. And if you want that radio to work for a long time, what happens is that your radio, you would need to have several AAA, especially rechargeables, several sets of AAAs to go through a day with this. Now, that said, a BL5C is not that much more powerful, though. A BL5C is, you know, I think the highest capacity that is possible is somewhere around 1500 milliamp hour. Anybody, by the way, that buys a BL5C that says, hey, it's 2500 milliamp hour, those are fake. It's impossible to have 2000 milliamp hour in a BL5C. Most standard ones actually are, I think, 1250 milliamp hour. I think it's for size and you know, power for the size of the battery that they used it. And price maybe, I don't know. But it definitely could be a game changer for a lot of people. Bonne nuit TVDXer, fais attention à toi, à samedi. À samedi. Okay. Nerd Funk have a Yaesu FT991 coming in the mail tomorrow. HF antenna shortly after that. Excited to play with a new radio. Cool. Scheduled to take my general exam on Saturday. Cool. I'm sure it's gonna be fine. Dimitri, all I want is Texan A51X and the Brothers there on 5850 broadcast. And your beer, what do you drink? Man. So, Melodic Miner, do you think there is a noticeable difference in sound and in ease of use from upgrading the 880 990X? No, I've said it many times. If you've got a Texan PL 880, there's no sense in going to the 990X, except for two things. Only things that would make it different: Bluetooth for audio playback, and SD card playback, and mostly maybe AM antenna, outdoor antenna through the outdoor antenna jack. But for the most part, in audio itself, don't move from an 880 to 990X. If you're going to be doing that, go directly to the H501X. At least it's a superior sound and stereo. Mark Fisher from Southern Illinois. Nice to have you here. Dirt Funk. I thought mag loops had incredibly narrow bandwidths. That sounds like an awesome antenna. Been reading up on mag loops past few nights. Really want to make one. Just need capacitor. Yeah, the one that I have is not attuned. You don't need to have it, because what you are reading on are the magnetic loop antennas that are tuned. So with that capacitor, you tune them all the time. The one I have, the MLA30, actually, what that is an amplified magnetic loop antenna. Doesn't need tuning. So no capacitors, no playing around with tuning. It's made for 500 kilohertz up to 30 megahertz. It's designed for that. And it's really inexpensive, honestly, if you want to get one. It's like about $45-50-ish US dollars. It works amazingly well. But building your own is fun also. And there's a lot of mag loop designs, including the ones with the capacitor tuning. Take care, Log 2112. Jazz Tank, there's a ship burning off Sri Lanka or something like that. And but it's I've seen something like that. It's actually, I think it's going to create some kind of real big hazard there. I heard it on Radio France International this afternoon. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things of the Yaesu 991A, that apparently it is actually superior. Joe, I've seen videos where people struggle with the 909 tuning knob. I love it. It is a thumb wheel. Thumb on the wheel and fingers on the side. Rotate your thumb. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the tuning. I'll honestly, I'll be very blunt here with that. I'd say half of the comments about radios are people that are so finicky and everything needs to be perfect that you just look at the comment and you're like, come on. When I see people saying, well, tuning that, or the 990X or the H501X button doesn't have a dimple for your finger, it's like, it hasn't made me had any problem. Look, there's no dimple on it. Want me to tune around? Look at that. No dimple. Okay? Yeah, there's no dimple. I know. But Does it look like I'm struggling? That I'm struggling to tune? Look at my finger go. It doesn't need a dimple. Stop complaining about what I deem to be unnecessary complaining about radios that have this or that missing, that are very, very minimal in problems. I see a lot of that. Oh, well, that antenna's flimsy, is going to break soon. If you're careful, it should last a long time. Of course, if you do like this all the time, it's like, yeah, it's going to break. Of course. It's, in a plastic radio. And there's a lot of comments that I see of people like, that broke immediately, this broke that, and I broke the power button. And it's like, what the hell are you doing with your radio? I got a lot of here, and I can tell you that I've never broke a power button on any of my Texans. And if there's a guy that a lot of Texans, it's me. There's a moment where you got to take that feedback, remove that part of the feedback where it's, you're just rough and are not careful with anything and you broke the radio. Just say it. Stop complaining that, oh, well, they're so cheap. No, you just broke the radio because you're just too rough with it. There's that part. Then there's the part where people complain about little idiotic things. And you're like, well, if that radio had the knob on the left side, it's like, who effing cares? It's on the right side. That's it. Just use it like that because that's the way it's designed, and that's it. I have no problem. Put it on the left, on the top, and the bottom. I don't care. You tune, it works. That's it. There's a lot of that going on that I try to filter out because at some point it's like, well, they could have done that. That sound, that button when I press on it, kind of moves. Yeah, so does it work? Does it do what you want it to do? Who cares if it moves? It's probably going to stay like that for 10 years. And then 10 years is like, well, it moves. It's flimsy. Yeah, it lasted 10 years. It's not that flimsy, but it moves. Yeah. Okay. So what? There's a few things like that. It is possible that that somebody somewhere might get a radio that quality control wasn't the best and has a specific item, that specific thing that doesn't work well. But overall, I would say that 60% of all comments on radios is, wow, really? You're complaining about that? Or you're kind of projecting to the future. It's like, well, I use this radio and those buttons seem to be really cheap, so I guess it won't last long. How do you know? And how do you know that they are really cheap? They are plastic, they are buttons, and they do a job. And yes, it's true that some radios are really not built very well around us, but you're projecting to the future of something that you have no idea. And half of the time, you're a nobody that doesn't even know what, should or not last long. You're just criticizing, and that's it. If in 3 months, the buttons don't work anymore, okay, then come back and say, well, I had this radio for 3 months, all the buttons are stopped working. Okay, that's an observation and a problem. But just taking a radio and it's like, well, I think this thing in 6 months is not going to work anymore. Okay. And on what are you basing your opinion on exactly? I mean, everything's plastic today, except for IN radios. H501 has metal knobs. The Texan PL990X, 880, they have metal knobs. They're pretty cool too. But, I have a lot of shortwave radios here, a lot of cheap radios. Pretty much none of them. The ones that are crappy because they're not receiving well, because pretty much all of them have stand the test of time. The buttons work. The buttons still work. The radio still turns on and still receive what I want. My own personal experience makes me look at some of the comments and go, yeah, okay, next. Not interesting. Dimitri, Sony ICF40, good radio. Doesn't have single sideband. Prasad, nice to have you here from India. Always nice to have you on board, my friend. Hope that everything isn't too bad over there. Christian Marcoux, what is the speaker? That speaker you were talking about on the PL330, for instance. You know what? A good pair of headphones, or a good pair of speakers. Even in some cases, even some computer speakers can deliver amazing sound from that audio connector on a radio like the PL330. W5BL, do you prefer listening to shortwave broadcast stations or ham rag chews? Both. I am a guy that will... Maybe that's why I'm not as... I would put the mood of a lot of people on shortwave as negative. My mood on shortwave is not negative. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that my listening on shortwave is so diversified that I always have something to listen to. Just an example of today, out at Visitation Island with my radio. If my only listening would be broadcast stations, not that I would be disappointed, because I would have had, and I did have, it's because I wanted to tune around, because I did have Voice of America in English. I had Radio France International in French. I got a BBC World Service. I would have had some decent program listening for shortwave broadcasts. But my afternoon was a lot more fun, because you know what I did? Listen to a little bit of that. And it's pretty much what I do here. I do a little bit of that and a little bit of other stuff. If, an example, I don't like every type of programs on the shortwave broadcaster. If I listen to Radio Romania and they start that music show, personally, I'm not a fan. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means I'm not a fan of that type of thing. What I'll do is, okay, what else is there to listen to? Then I might tune in the international broadcast bands, see what else is in there. But I don't stop there. I'm going to go to, what's interesting in the utility bands? What weird broadcast or station might I hear that's going to be fun, or that weird signal that I'm going to try to identify that I never heard before. Ham radio operators, I love to listen to good chats when they have good conversations, technical conversations, stuff like that. But not just that. Honestly, I get a kick out of those stations that just call for DX. It might be something boring for some. Not for me. If you got to, like this afternoon, S57, what was it? It was Sugar 51 DX, I think, from Slovenia. That guy was on 20 meters at 14.237 this afternoon. Well, you know what? I went through the bands 3 or 4 times. Utility, everything, international. Didn't find that there was something that interesting, or what I wanted to listen to wasn't strong enough. So I punched in 14.237. I remember the guy was there. And you know what? I listened for at least half an hour, listened to the guy making contacts with I find it fun to, first of all, I'm hearing Serbia. Second, find it kind of fun to see what other stations he's contacting I can hear too in the US or wherever. I find that fun. I like a lot of different aspects of the shortwave spectrum, which keeps me always interested, always there. So, for example, in a night, just give an example here. And by the way, I know I'm 15 minutes behind, guys. In the night that I'm here in my office, and I'll be tuning the SDR, and I might be tuning actually because I'm multitasking radios. So I got a multi-coupler. I might have 4 radios running: the SDR, 3 portables, or the SDR, the Yaesu, and 2 portables, or whatever. Each will have different signals or different things that I'm tuning, but I'll be looking at what's up there. And I'm going to be like, okay, what is interesting here? I'll be tuning signals. I'll be checking out what are the signals there. But I will be keeping an eye on anything that will pop up that is not there right now. That could be something interesting, something popping up that I don't know what it is. I'll be tuning on different frequency ranges, checking out, maybe something's there, maybe something is interesting in that range that I haven't seen before, or, oh, look at that, there's that signal from Argentina with, the weather broadcast in Navtex, or there's so much of the spectrum that I go crazy on. So this afternoon I was listening to international broadcast, nothing interesting, but I was always tuning because I was, at a low noise spot. So let's check out what's out there. But when tuning 3 or 4 times brings you nothing really, then what I did was, okay, well, we'll try the ham bands. I had Preom open on my tablet here, so I could see what's the next number station. Brought me some number stations like the English language Russian one this afternoon. I am always searching for stuff, but not every day. There's nights that my listening is program. An example, Saturday night, I tend to be in program listening mode. So I'll be listening to whatever shortwave broadcast is to listen to, Radio Romania, Voice of Turkey. I'll be listening to some of the US broadcasters with like Radio Slovakia, Radio Prague, relays. I'll be listening to Voice of the Report of the Week. I'll be listening to the DX block on WWCR. Saturday night tends to be for me a very program listening time. And of course, in there, I'll go into pirates and see if pirate stations are broadcasting at a specific time and what frequencies. But honestly, I think the reason why I am so positive of shortwave still is because I listen to so many different styles and types of signals. And you don't have to always have a program. It could be hams just making contacts, but with exotic countries or stations, I'll be happy just to have a guy from, the other night, this guy from Bermuda was on 40 meters. I just stuck there for an hour. It's like, he's just making contacts, but it's like, it's cool. It's Bermuda. I'm hearing Bermuda. And he's making contacts. And at the same time, while I'm doing other things, like, what other stations am I hearing that can contact him, actually? I think that's what makes me keep radioing on. The fact that I have so many different signals of interest. I had a comment, or actually it was an email many months ago. Guy said, my main reason I came to shortwave was for program listening. And program listening It's not that there's not a lot of program listening. There's a lot out there. There's a lot out there, but there's a lot of things that can make it a very short list. If you live in North America, you have a shorter list of program content listening than if you live in Europe, for example, because there's less broadcasts directed to us. Makes it more difficult. So you have these things that make it less interesting, because depending on what you want, yeah, it is. You can pick up a shortwave radio and be sad of what you're going to get. Add the noise floor, add so many things. If your main goal of getting a shortwave radio is, I want to listen to, international news on my radio in my living room, and it's the only thing I want to do, there's a chance I might even tell you, you know what, maybe you should listen to the news on the internet. Listen to broadcasters on the internet, or to whatever it is on the internet with news items. Because if you are minded that you're not going to go outside, put an outside antenna, understand that you might need to play around with the radio to have better reception and all of that, because it's not uninteresting and it's not what you want to do, then shortwave is not for you. That's for sure. That's for sure. And if you're telling me, well, I just want to have international news, you got that on the internet. Go there, okay? Because that's where it's going to be better for you. If you're not a radio geek, because we're not all radio geeks. And somebody would come from like 30 years ago, say, hey, I'm back into shortwave to listen to broadcasters. Okay, be prepared to be in a state of shock a little. But then what exactly do you want? There are, we have to admit that there aren't, shortwave radio listening is not for everyone. Even if you want to have certain types of stuff to listen to. We are the, geekiest shortwave and radio guys around. We thrive in getting signals from everywhere and all. But the more you will be diversified in your listening, the more you will have fun with your radio, honestly. So that's the thing. Yogi, nice to have you on board from Hong Kong. So let's try to pick up the pace here. Pick up the pace. Patrick Wynn, nice to have you on board. Yeah, the best is amplified speakers, because the output jack is meant for earbuds or earphones, but not for speakers themselves. Third funk. So what? That's those receiver mag loops that have been advertised. That's good to know. Definitely pick one up to use with the SDR. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Oh yeah, absolutely. You can have your radio, your SDR online for others to use if you want. That's for sure. That's for sure. RGA Dakota. Some people are spoiled. Yeah, absolutely. And people don't realize what they have also, I think. That's another thing. Yogi says Texan could make a few more bucks with releasing optional knobs with dimples. Oh, man. Patrick Wynn, ECF 7. Joe, Antenna Talk brings up a question. How do you keep your antennas working smooth? I noticed my 880s is getting harder to extend. You know what? I think one of the biggest things that's happening with that is that I almost never use my external antennas, my telescopic antennas with my portables. Because yes, they tend to get stiffer and a little more of a problem when you use them a lot. And what problem that arises with that is, over time, when you always use the telescopic, it is true though that these antennas might get a little stiffer and harder to work with. I don't have that problem because I almost never use them. Look today, I used them today because I didn't use an external antenna. But when I'm here, my radios use the MLA30. When I'm in the backyard, they use that. Or last year, they would use the sloper that would just clip with the alligator clip to the telescopic that I don't extend. I just leave it there. I just clip to the telescopic there. So what happens is my radio's telescopic antenna usage are very low. So basically, most of my radios have antennas that are still working like brand new, like when I purchased the radio. That's an interesting question there, Joe. If you use your radio always with the telescopic, so you extend it all the time and several times a day, you have a good question there. Anybody would have a tip or anything to help these antennas work and stay smooth all the over years of use? That's an interesting question there you got. Melodic Miner, really enjoyed your video today, listening on the 40 meters lower sideband. Yeah, the video I posted last night, pretty cool. Robert Shine, nice to have you here. N3VXT, greetings, my friend. Yeah, that's one thing I did think of. Like Bob says, moisten rag with WD-40. That could help. That's what I would have tried first, probably. Dmitry, how do you like to tune the knob of PRN 1000 radio? I think if you do it, much fun, because this kind of radio have chaffing noise when you're tuned. Yeah, well, I don't like radios that usually have those chuffing or muting when we tune, though. Paul pulled the trigger on the RSPDX, the bandwidth, and 3 antenna inputs sold me. Watching here can be hazardous to the wallet. You're going to get a great device. And I have to say, bandwidth, if you do VHF, UHF, it's great. And the 3 antenna inputs also is very, very nice. I mean, you know what? One of the first things that I found cool when I got my RSPDX is the fact that compared to the RSP1A, I didn't have to unscrew and screw the antennas again and again and again, because I have to switch from VHF, UHF antenna to my shortwave antenna, and always, now 3 antenna inputs. If I want to try 3 different, I could have my Discone, my MLA30, and my W6LVP, all 3 of them together on the RSPDX. No need to switch. There's 3 ports. I can plug them in all at once and switch between them, and it's cool. Plus, for testing purposes of antennas, it's cool. You got 2 different antennas, want to try which one is the best? It's easy. In software, you just choose one antenna input. That's it. It's pretty cool, too. RJ88 Dakota spent part of the past weekend listening to 5085's History of Rock and Roll. Actually, some cool music instead of the usual junk on FM. Pretty cool. W7LHT, wonder if you could hear my CW right now. Would have to check out and see what frequency you are on. Scott Belcher, if we order a registered full version Malachite radio with the code, as I have, will it have the full version loaded on it and go to 2 gigahertz when I get it, or will I have to do something? It's unclear. It's unclear what you have to do. There's a possibility you might have to do these software update and then enter the code. Some seem to show or say that you just have to enter the code, but I'm not sure. Matt says, "Cool, Bermuda's rare for ham radio." Yeah, it is rare. I don't hear it. I don't hear it very often. I find it kind of cool, honestly. It's like I just stay there. WS7LHT says, "So last weekend I talked to F4 WBN, 15 watts SSB from Oregon during the SOTA activation. Cool. RJ Dakota, Radio Romania on 11780 interfering with Radio Nacional. Really? Did Radio Romania go on 11780? Really? What do I have here? I've got...
Día libre adicional el lunes 31 de mayo para tener unas mini vacaciones. Se han organizado juegos al aire libre, espectáculos de teatro, exposiciones, conciertos.
Is that a new frequency for Radio Romania? What are they doing on Radio Nacional Amazonas frequency? 780. 03. Yeah. That is interesting. So they're interfering with the last hour. That's odd. I mean, Radio Romania goes to the HFCC. Is Radio Nacional Amazona going to the HFCC also to register their frequencies? That's the problem sometimes of those clashes on shortwave. One station does not register their frequency, so the other station doesn't know they're using it. So, WWV is not a 13800. You're getting some kind of over what antenna with different antennas and different receivers. Because 13800 WWV isn't there. Something is definitely not right if you're hearing 13800 WWV. That's for sure, Dave. Robert Chine still trying to figure out if the Russian digital numbers stations can be deciphered. Yeah, I'm going to check it out. I think I've seen a software that exists that can... Now, let's be fair. There's a difference between decipher and decoding. The software gives you the numbers. So when you use the software, you have the groups of numbers from the number station. That cannot be deciphered. But I have to check because I think I've seen something somewhere. But I have to check. How much could you get for a used Drake R8? I've seen a lot that go for a decent price, but I don't know. Mark Alford, nice to have you on board from Vancouver Island. Yeah, definitely, Dave, because 13800, nope. Aerial Imaging says 450 to 700, depending on the condition. Canadian Radio TV Guy, nice to have you on board. 30 Celsius in Sherwood Park, Alberta. That's where we're going to get starting this weekend here. Already today, we're in the 80s. So today was like 27 Celsius. Yogi, the Joy program listening, the station you are trying to listen to get QRM by an unknown DRM test. Canadian Radio TV Guy, my tip is to just be gentle pulling on the telescopic and not bust it off like me. I have a 1965 Felco BT914 shortwave receiver. The telescopic still works great. They are flimsier than they were in the past. That's for sure. I look at the telescopic on my Patrolman CB60, and I look at the telescopic on the H501X. It's obvious that it's thinner and a little easier to break, that's for sure. Dimitri, when you receive the Russian military CW coded stations, can you copy what they are communicate? No, these are coded messages. So you can, jot down whatever letters and numbers series they're sending. But without the pad, the famous one-time pads, there's no way you can understand what they're saying. That's another thing, like our J88 Dakota. Pull the antenna down from the bottom and pull down the element by element. Not seen too many antennas get broken being pushed down. Yeah, absolutely. Being careful. One of the biggest errors of everybody using radios, they extend the antenna. They will extend the antenna, and they're going to actually push from the top to close it. Never, ever do that. Ever. You want to have it even worse is if you got a Texan PL990X. The 990X last little element is so thin that just blowing on it actually bends it. So, from the base, you slowly close it, collapse it, or, it's you got to be careful, honestly. It's very, very important to be careful. Hey, I've reached the bottom of the chat. Pretty cool. Chess Tank says a good product to use on any antennas, other metal items, is a product called Fluid Film, like WD-40, but much better. Works great on the boat. Light coats last long time and protects in foul weather. Interesting. What's on 1300? That's a medium wave band. Yeah, some kind of show, probably. Some kind of show. So, got to be careful. So I had a great day today at the park, listening to Shortwave with the big Texan H501X. And if all goes well next week, I think it's going to be my first return to Perry Island this year. Last time I've been there was last year. I've been there once. So, Yogi, it actually could be a good idea to do so. Because there's a way in collapsing and using a telescopic to make it last as long as possible and not break it. It's very interesting. It's very interesting because I get these messages all the time. Why do you do a video explaining such a basic thing? Everybody knows that. No, not everybody knows that. Okay, stop being a wise ass thinking that everybody knows that. Same with, you just gave me an idea here. It's like, you know what? Maybe that will have people thinking, okay, yeah, I got to collapse it this way. Stop doing it that way. It might look simple, but you know what? Sometimes it's just education of just saying, look, this is the way that you will actually use a telescopic antenna. And be careful, Take care, Dirt Funk. It's nice to have you here. Hey, Levy Nathan. Nice to have you here from Israel. Yeah, well, I think it's better to extend all of the antenna because it will give you more signal, but just be careful the way that you collapse it afterwards. That's the best. Yogi says, I broke mine on the D1101. Really hurt. Lesson learned. And I have been careful since then. Yeah. it's I broke antennas. I broke a couple of telescopics. I can tell you that. I broke a few telescopics on some radios. Definitely. My PL600 has the top end broken. Why? Because I did that crazy let's collapse by the top, not thinking. And so it's missing its last section in reality. Take care, 73 Paul. It's nice to have you on board. But you just got to be, we got to be careful. You got to remember that even plastic, we say, oh, it's plastic. Yeah, but there's plastic and plastic. And I mean, radios that were plastic in the 80s had sturdier plastics than today. Today, the plastic is thinner. They try to save money. So everything is thin. It's just the bare minimum to be, a package that holds together. And that is just solid enough. So, you got to be careful today. Anybody that has one of those newer shortwave radios, it's exactly that. You got to be careful because, they're not made of metal. They don't have sturdy big gun antennas. One of the reasons it can be for that is if you've been with radios for a long time, we probably did push down on telescopic antennas of our radios of the 80s that were so much sturdier and thicker with metal that they sometimes could bend a little, but they would never break. Which is not the case today, honestly. It's thinner. Mark Alford, I'm doing my own DXing contest against myself. See the furthest I can get coast to coast from 1918 shortwave crystal radio with DX 1000 Gober. So far, I've got 1,774 kilometers from me. That's cool. These are, when we say we got to find ways to stay active and find that the hobby is fun, this is an example. Trying to have some kind of goal to test and to do things to make us want to do even better. An example of one that I do, and I should make a video. I go on one of those clusters, like dxfuncluster.com, for example, and I look at all the ham stations on the bands. And I put myself a goal. Okay, I see all the stations going through. And the next hour, I want to have 10 different countries. And I'm going to go and try all the ones that I know that are possible in my location and punch in the frequencies or click on the display here and see which ones I can hear. And then it's this hour I want to have 10 different countries or 15 different countries or it could be I want to have a station that is at least more than 5,000 kilometers away in the next hour, whatever. Or I want to have as many European countries in the next hour that I can. These are all things you can do that kind of make it enjoyable. It's okay, I'm going to punch in some of these ham stations and see if I can hear them here, It's a fun way to keep active and keep the hobby fun. Honestly. Take care, VT Radio. Yeah, I know I can get a replacement antenna, but you know what? I almost never use it with the externals. So it's I just left it like that because it doesn't really make me, it doesn't really make me, give me any problems here. Jason Francis, that's a great idea. Try the personal DX contest. Yeah, it's one of those fun things that you can do, and it's just cool. Canadian Radio TV guy broke the very top element off of my Ethan satellite radio. My grandfather's Grundig S350 DL has most of the top elements broken off. It's usually the top elements we break. because these are the ones that are thin. So the ones that are going to bend and break off. That's most of what happens. So, Levy Nathan, you have to tell the new ones about WT Mythic 120 that makes the antenna invisible and attract waves. Joe, I listen to DX contests, log the stations I hear, look them up at the ARL site and plot them on a Google map. Fun to see all the places I got logged. I love DX contests for that. Hearing, in a DX contest, I mean, you can hear 50 countries in an hour. It's like, if you really want to, you can hear the world in like a couple of hours. It's just so amazing. Canadian Radio TV guy says his grandfather's S350DL is still pretty damn sensitive with half of the telescopic. Yeah, most of the radios with, one or two elements off isn't too much of a problem, basically. Take care, Matt. Always nice to have you here, MDK2. Stay safe. I will also now sign off, guys. I'm kind of tired. You know what? Going out, even if you don't, I had to walk a good distance at the park itself and all. And it was hot. And I was kind of tired. When I got to the show, I was like, I'm kind of tired. So we'll be back Saturday with the next show. And hope that you enjoyed tonight's show. We had a lot of fun. It's kind of cool. Interesting topics and stuff tonight. I can tell you that. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. And we'll be back Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 20 hours Universal Time. And we'll be listening. And we'll be, we'll be only 2 hours. Yeah, the problem here is because it's like 10:20 p.m. and my neighbors can hear everything I say. R5AJ, signal near Moscow, 14222. Let's check that out. Am I hearing that? 14222. Seeing a few signals on 20 meters, but oops. I'm hearing him. Yeah, I'm hearing him. Just heard him. 14222. That guy from Moscow. He's very weak here, but he's there. Oh, this is so cool. So cool. So take care, everybody, and stay safe. Love you all. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. See you Saturday. And radio on. Have fun. It's the best way to enjoy radio. Bye-bye there.